I moved here to Israel. I left the job in Peru. I was working for the government. Like my first moment was with like my brother having this accident, and you wake up 6 a.m. and it's like the time zone different, and then he's like, I was in a car accident, and I was like, what? Whether for love, for studies, for need, for whatever, if you're not okay, whatever process you're in is not gonna be okay.
Hey Anna, welcome to We Are Meant to United podcast. We are so excited to have you here today, for our audience to get to know a little bit about your work. For those who might not know you, please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do.
Okay, sure. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be part of this episode. I think like the things that we're going to discuss later about mental health and migrants are very important and they're very close to what I do nowadays. I'm born and raised in Peru. I lived pretty much all of my life there, between Lima and Trujillo in the north. But for the last 5 years, I've been living in Israel. My husband is Israeli. That's how I ended up here, part of my migration journey that we'll talk later. I currently work for a private company, customer experience. But on the, like you said, like a side job, which is not a job because it's just like side project, I'm doing a PhD. I just got my proposal approved about Peruvian migrant women in Europe, how their migration process affect their adaptation and also their well-being. And I also lead two projects, one here in Israel about women who are in a partner visa process with Israelis, and also have a podcast about Latinas who have migrated and are in different parts of the world, trying to share their stories and their journeys as well.
That is so exciting. You keep yourself busy, and I'm so excited I'm really inspired by like higher education, and also love talking about like the migration system. So I'm very excited to learn more about that. And congratulations on pursuing your PhD. Like that's awesome. But I can't wait to hear
Thank you
about more
very
of your
much.
podcast. You keep so busy. Tell us a little bit about your own upbringing and the early stages of life that kind of led you to where you are today.
So I was born and raised like in a Christian family, like let's say like the typical Christian family in South America, in Latin America, with the values like the traditional values. Also, my family was also very like we live by very conservative values, but we don't judge the people who decide not to do conservative things, right? So it was like a kind of mix of upbringing that I had because yes, I lived in a conservative ecosystem, but I understood that not everyone live by the same values and the same way of doing things, which I think gave me always like this view of the world, like, hey, there is more out there, and we're always open to learn, open to learn to understand how everyone lives their lives. And this is something I really like about my church. Like, hey, we do this like this, but we understand people do things differently as well. And I think that helped me a lot to be open-minded when I did my first migration process back in 2017 when I was doing my master. And I understood that everyone has their own way of living life and everyone should be accepted by that within limits, like if you're like into real stuff, like within limits, everyone should be loved and accepted as there is. And I think that's something that shaped my childhood and my youth as well.
Wow, that's a really beautiful way to for us to kick off this conversation because I just that's a very important part to me, like important part of my life, like being non-judgmental and being inclusive. And then when you do speak about like conservative communities, to still be able to be open and non-judgmental to others is like that's really meaningful. So thank you for sharing that with me. How did those experiences later shape your worldview, your value system?
So I think like I've been very steady on how I was raised, like the values of like, be honest, understand the other, give the other cheek. I had a Christian upbringing. And that through different circumstances in life, sometimes you're like tested, like, do I really want to be honest on this? Or do I really want to like keep giving the other cheek? Eventually you run out of cheeks, but you also understand that this is how I was raised and it have worked for my family, it worked for me. Like I keep doing it. And it also shaped a lot on like who's my partner now, I'm sharing my life with, and also my friends. We might have my husband is Jewish. Most of my friends are Jewish or even from different religions because we all met here in Israel now. We come from different backgrounds, but we all agree, like, hey, we all think lying is bad. to put it like in simple terms, right? We all think stealing is bad. We all think cheating is bad. You might be Jewish, you might be Muslim, you may be whatever religion or no religion, but we all understand cheating is bad, so we're good, right? So I think these basic values have shaped my friendship, has shaped my marriage, has even shaped my work values. I recently left a job a few months ago because it was no longer like management was no longer aligning with my own values, and I was like, okay, there is a limit. I know you pay for my bills, and I know I need the money to pay for the bills, but there's also a point that I'm not willing to cross. So that kind of like shapes your life in all the levels.
No, that's really beautifully put. And that's actually also been something that I've been reflecting on as I, reach my quarter life or whatever. Like I'm in my mid-20s. So I've definitely been like reflecting on those things, like
You're
a
so
lot of,
young.
I know. Thanks. You're so young too. But
I'm
no, like
32. So
yeah, you're literally so young. But these are the themes that are like coming back, and you really get a chance to think about how your early life or like how your values is shaping your life today. And I feel like I've kind of been on that journey myself, and you mentioned finding value in your work. So like I guess you're a millennial, I'm a Gen Z. So these are themes that are being more and more prevalent, I feel like, in our generations, right? And just like whether it's in work, relationships, friendships, people are getting, I feel like I'm noticing people getting very intentional about how their values align with their lifestyles. And you brought up work, so that also spoke to me. I work at a college now. Besides Mensa United, so that's a nonprofit institution. It's like a state university. So I find that aligning more with my values than like working in corporate. And I find myself feeling very differently, like when I go to work or like at the end of the week, instead of feeling exhausted, I just feel normal. And that's been a journey for the last 3 years by on itself. So I'm really excited that you brought that up, and it really resonated with me. You blend research, tech, advocacy, storytelling. Um, and what connects all these places for you?
So I gotta be honest, my life in tech happened by accident. When I moved here to Israel, I left the job in Peru. I was working for the government, working with communities and conflict prevention. So I came to Israel with this idea that I want to keep doing nonprofit. I want to keep working with the people, with the community. But unfortunately, it wasn't really easy to get into the nonprofit or community work here in Israel. First of all, because of the language, I don't speak Hebrew. It's very, very basic. And it was very like Israel centered. And I felt like it was very hard to break into like, let's say, the work system. So my first, I told you before the recording that I volunteered and worked for a nonprofit that was working in Ethiopia, and it was amazing. It was like the best months of my life. But then they couldn't like afford my position, so we had to like part ways. And then my first job was like in business world, which was something completely new for me because I've always been into like social work, working with communities, but they wanted someone who works with Latin America. And I was like, well, I speak Spanish. I'm from Latin America. I kind of fit the bill, so let's give it a try. And then I worked up for a bit in a private company, and now for the last almost 4 years, I've been working in high tech. And somehow I did understand that all the tools and experience and learning that I had from my job in Peru, from my projects and everything that is operations, that is solving issues, kind of like merge into like, okay, I can do high tech. I'm not a programmer. I don't know. I'm not a developer. Can barely, open the Word and the Google Docs and stuff. But I can do like these skills that I have can be transformed into something that works in high tech. So I like solving problems. I like solving people's life. So it kind of worked for me, customer experience and operations. This is like the field that I like. And then, I had these two projects that are like the job in high tech pays the bill for these side projects that I have that are paying no bills at all. It's just because I love what I do. I love putting on the table. And it started with my podcast about Peruvian migrant women with Granadilla like 4 years ago. like putting on the table the fact that their women's migrant journeys are completely different than men's journeys. They're not easier or harder or whatever, they're just different. There's a whole thing of like, oh, I heard it many times, like, why don't you focus on men as well? We're not important. I was like, yeah, but migration studies are mostly focused on men. And nobody really studies, or just in the past like 30 years, they just started to study women's migrant journey. So anyway, so these things connect because I like helping people. I wish I could quit my job and just do my projects, and pay the bills with that. I wish I could, unfortunately not yet. But it's that, like, it's helping people, it's telling their stories, it's fighting for them sometimes. It's also getting very frustrated sometimes. I get frustrated at work when I cannot solve a user's issue. And then I get frustrated in these on these side projects when I hear a migrant who's not getting her rights because the government misplace a document. We're trying to fight the document or figure it out, and you're like, yeah, it's not solvable for the next 6 months. And you're like, what? So I think it has connected this passion of me of solving people and working with people, but at the same time having my me time. Like I can sit in my office for like 6 hours reading and writing my dissertation, and I don't have to like be with people, because being with people also drains you a bit, right? So I need to find a balance, and for me has been like I do operations, advocate for people, but I also find in editing my episodes and in working on my proposal my me time.
That's absolutely incredible. And yeah, I mean, I can't wait to talk a little bit more about like your journey, migrating and also like your personal experiences that motivate a lot of the work that you do today. But tell me a little bit about like your decision to move abroad and how you came about that.
So we need to take a trip back to like 2016. Yeah, 2016. I was working in a university in Peru, working like a virtual studies, like online classes and da da da. And then Peru launched a law that for you to like kind of like grow within academia, you needed to have a master degree. I only had like a bachelor's. And I was like, hey, I'm gonna take my time because I was trying to figure out myself. I was only like 21, 22, I think. But they could put this law, and basically my department said like, all of you people who don't have a master or are like enrolled in one, you might get fired in the next few months or years. I was like, okay. And I had like this story with Israel. Again, I grew up in a Christian family. I've been in Israel for a few times, but always part of like a pilgrim trip, within this bubble. And I wanted to come back to Israel by myself, and I also wanted to study abroad. So I applied for a master degree here in Israel. Somehow I got accepted. It was like a roller coaster of like money, being like, I spoke English, but it was like academic English. It was like a whole different thing. But I got the grades, I got everything. I even got like a partial scholarship. So I delayed for 1 year. And then in 2017, I moved here. It was great. It was very hard. Like I arrived like a day before, and this is someone who's coming from a third world country, a developing country, all the way to the first world. That everything is more expensive, everything is different, and I didn't have like a backup of like, yeah, my dad is sending me $2,000 a month. It's all good. Like it was me, my savings, and my scholarship and my student loans by myself facing the world. And I was like by myself. In my head, I was like, yeah, my dad will fly with me, help me adjust. And I was like, then we did the numbers. I was like, nobody's flying with me. Like I'm doing this by myself. It was hard. It was very hard. I was like the only Latina in the group. And most of like the group were like, from Europe and the US. So it was like a whole experience for me to understand how the world works abroad. It was great also. I met people from every background, made good friends as well, met my husband in the process. I always make the joke that the university gave me a master and a husband for the price of one. It's a bad joke. It's a bad joke. People don't like it, but it's my joke and I own it because he's not part of the program. I met him in Jerusalem. I was living in Tel Aviv, but we met in a museum. But he met him like by uh, the end of my journey here. And I always saw myself as a student who's living abroad for a year. It was never my plan to stay abroad. I remember clearly, I think month 5 or 6, I called my dad crying because I missed them a lot, my mom, everyone. I felt so alone. I left like I was living in the student dorms, but I was like had my own studio. And it was super small, but somehow it felt huge when I was there. And I was like, I feel so alone. I don't have my friends. I'm like on a budget. I don't have my dad to give me like $50 to just go out. It's the whole thing. Israel is a very expensive country as well. And it was like a big turning point that my dad was like, do you want to come back and drop everything? And I was like, no, like I worked so hard for this. And he's like, okay, so figure it out. Like, what do you want to do? And I was like, no, I'm staying. Like, what are we talking about here? Like, I'm staying, but I need to cry for 5 minutes. He's like, okay, you want to cry? Cry. So I had my brother came to visit me. It was an interesting year. Like I told you, I met my husband, but I went back to Peru anyway because it was never in my plans to be a migrant. Like, it took me a long time to accept myself as a migrant. And I still say that that year I was a student abroad, and that's it. I moved back to Peru, and then we had COVID. We all know what happened there. And then in 2020, I was with my husband in a long distance relationship for almost 2 years. And in 2020, we decided to get married. We're a COVID marriage. We literally crossed borders, annoyed the Ministry of Foreign Affairs until he got a permit to come. Was a mess. It's a whole like podcast about long distance marriages we could make it through. And now I'm here for 5 years. Uh, this time it hit me harder, the process, because you're no longer part of this like a student bubble. Like you're a student, so everything is easy for you. Like you have an issue, you go to the student association, whatever, and you tell them, hey, how do I open a bank account? And they come with you and they tell you, oh, this bank that is near the campus, knows how to deal with students. It's all good. You don't need an ID. You don't care. You're studying. You're focused on getting good grades, and that's it. And then I moved here and I started like this whole partner visa process, and I had to like really do things by myself because I was staying, and then in a different country. And I moved in COVID. So I spent the first 2 weeks locked in the house, looking through the window, like, oh, that's the world out there. And my first experience was in the bus that my husband put, like I had money, I had like the shekels, that is the currency here, get into the bus, and I wanted to pay to the guy. And the guy's like, we only take like bus cards. I was like, what is a bus card? Like my husband used to take the car, so he didn't know the bus. And I was like, I don't have a bus card. Like I have money. Like take all my money, like take, I don't care, you don't have change. Because I was going to the hospital. I had an appointment and he's like, no cash, no cash. I was like, what do you mean no cash? I was like, yeah. And I was like texting my husband and he's like, I'm at work. And then this random girl gets up on the bus and she's like, okay, I'll pay for you. And she put her like bus pass. And I was like, okay, I'll pay you back. I was like, it's okay. It was like $2. I was like, no, but I'll pay you back. And she's like, no, it's all good. Because she didn't have change either. So I had like 100 something. It was like, so I got to the hospital and then I was like, well, I need to get out of the hospital. So my husband picked me up. It was a whole thing. But then it was like, opening your bank account, opening your health insurance, signing up, going through the bureaucracy. It's been 5 crazy years. And I don't regret the decision, but it was hard. And I think sometimes we don't talk much about this privileged migration process because I'm privileged to have a husband here, who understands the language and everything. But at the end of the day, he cannot go to work for me. Even on the bank, like I called to the bank and they're like, okay, speaking Hebrew. And they're like, okay, so talk to my husband. And they're like, no, for security reasons, we need to talk to you. I was like, yes, buddy, but I press English and you're talking to me in Hebrew and I don't speak much Hebrew, like not bank level. And then it's like, okay, but we cannot help you. And I was like, so what do I do? It's like, yeah, of course, I'm very privileged to have my husband. But at the end, I need to figure out myself. So 5 years later, it's much better, but it's been a process.
Yeah, no. I'm so like I feel like so therapeutic to just hear about you talk about this, to hear you talk about this because I also migrated to the US for education, um, and then, have been here since working and everything. So it's definitely a process, but it's just so great to hear you talk about it because and I like the term you use, like privileged migration, because you're, coming and like landing in a plane and like you have everything sorted out. But then in reality,
Yeah.
it's all these nuances that like no one teaches you about. And then at least while you're in school, like you said, you have support systems or resources that at least they can give you a PDF on like what you have to do, where you have to do it, when you have to do it. And then you become an adult and then you have to like
Yes.
do your
Totally.
taxes, pay your rent, like fill out a rental application. Like, what the hell is that? It's so complicated for no reason. And then you have to also figure out all these nuances. Like, I don't know how to explain that to someone who hasn't been through it, to be honest with you.
Mhm.
Um, and it's just so complicated, like, because you don't really have your parents to look up to. They're not in that system. Like, they're in the system back home. Like, it's not the
Yeah,
same, not quite the same.
for
Like,
sure.
they can understand the overall aspect, but not like really in depth of it. And then also when you mentioned that, like, moving to a first world country, a lot of the systems are very different. Like it's a
Mhm.
system-based civilization, I guess you could say. So it's like
Yeah,
all these systems you have to learn. And for you, it's even more complicated because, there's that language barrier. So
yeah.
yeah, I resonate with that a lot, but and I'm really, really excited that we're having this conversation and also to share this with our audience because that's a big part of the work that you do. So I'm very excited to bridge your work with like folks who I know for sure are having similar difficult experiences. Tell me a little bit about like your emotional, mental, and social journey over these years. T Tell me a little bit about that.
So on the first time that I migrated as a student, like I told you, I had like this mental breakdown with my dad, but then it hit Christmas, and this is a Jewish state. We have Russians, we have the Arab Christians who celebrate Christmas, and thank you, Lord, for them because they save Christmas every year. Love them. But it's
Hmm.
not like the same Christmas spirit than in Peru. Like you go every corner and there's like Christmas trees and everything. So it hit me because I was like super focused on classes because we don't get time off for Christmas. I was so focused on classes. They were like 24 Christmas Eve, and I had like no plans. And I was like, I'm gonna spend Christmas alone at home, eating like like these soups that you get for $3, watching TV. And I was like, that's sad. Like I want Christmas. I want a tree. I want the carols. And then one of like my classmates, he was Canadian and he belonged to like a church that had like an office or something in Israel, so he was connected with other people. And he's like, "Do you want to spend Christmas Eve with us?" I was like, "Yes." Like I'm going. Like it was like on the other side of the city. It was like at night. I was all alone. Like what is this? But it kind of like saved the night. And that's why I believe a lot in communities, in talking and putting yourself out there and you reaching out to people to kind of like, I know the word's a bit too much, but like to save them, in very hard times. And my first year in Israel, like once we got married and everything, I moved back. Again, it was COVID, so it's also harder to build any kind of community because we were all locked in the houses. But then, like the COVID started like being under control, the vaccine and this and the other. And my husband started going more to work, and then I was home alone because I was working remotely a few hours. I was a professor, an English professor, and then it stopped. And then I was like, what do I do with my life now? And it was very hard because I didn't have friends. And I remember clearly that I needed to write my thesis for my master degree. And so my father-in-law was like, okay, I think it's time, like your COVID is almost over, you're going out more. So I wrote the thesis. It was like between 2021. And then by the end of 2021, I think, I signed up to start a PhD. I decided I wanted to do a PhD that is related to one of the projects that I had. And until now, my best friend, that is the first friend that I did in Israel, it was doing a class. Like she approached to me because I was hanging out always with my husband's friends. They were going to the bar and I was like the little pet, going to the bar with them. Oh, we're going to eat. I was going, and there are guys, they're amazing. I love them, they're great, but there are men and they're his friends. Like I wanted my friends, girls to go coffee, to go to walk the dog, whatever. I needed this, and it took me a long time. My sister-in-law was amazing. She would take me to eat and blah blah blah. But I wanted, friends that I could even dash about my husband. I couldn't tell. Oh, I'm frustrated because my husband didn't wash the dish because it was her brother. I was like, I'm not doing this. So it took me a minute. And no Israeli. She's my best friend, one of my great friends that I have here in Israel. And I met her on my first semester when I was taking classes for the PhD. She speaks Spanish. She's Israeli, and she approached to me. We spoke like a few minutes in class. Every class we like talk for a minute. And I wanted to befriend her, but I was so scared because when you're like 27, 28 and you migrate, it's very hard to make new friends because you're old. You already made your friends in high school, in your bachelor, or whatever, and you're like, I'm 27. She's like 3 years younger than me. I was like, she doesn't want any friends either. And my husband was like, you need to get out of your comfort zone. You need friends. He was like, you're done. Like, you need friends. I was like, I know, but I'm like, eh. So I sent her an email because I didn't have her phone number. So I sent her an email from like the university email. I was like, hey, like, hey, we've spoken a few times. I don't know if you would like to hang out. And I sent the email. I was like hiding under the table. I was like, this is the worst thing I've done in my life. And then she messaged me like 2 minutes later, being like, dude, I've been trying to ask you for your phone, but we always forget. Let's hang out tomorrow. And I was like, okay. And it's been like since then, like we hang out, we see each other like once or twice a month. We do a lot. We're going to a concert in Poland next month and stuff like that. And it's crazy, like, but it was hard. Like the first 2 years was very hard for me because also like I moved when I was like 27. Like I was a woman who had a life in Peru, who knew like, oh, I need to buy, I don't know, buttons for the t-shirt. I know to which store to go. I have someone in the market. I'll go to this store, get whatever I need. Oh, I need to buy, I don't know, disposables for the house. I know where to go. I need to buy to fix something in the bank. People know me in the bank. I had like the best credit score in Peru. I had banks fighting to give me loans. Like I built a life. And then I moved to Israel, and I was like, "Who are you?" The bank was like, "We're gonna give you a $5 credit, and we're taking a risk with you." I was like, "Excuse me, like, what are you talking about?" I had banks fighting for me. And then the whole job situation, everyone told me like when I moved here, like, wow, you have a master from an Israeli university, you speak languages, you're so professional, you're gonna get a job right away. It was all a lie. It took me months to find something. I cried so much because they were offering me like internship positions. I was like, what are you talking about? I already did the job, I already like did the dirty job. I don't want to be a CEO, but I also don't want to be an intern. I want to like start like I know I needed to climb again, but not from the bottom, to the middle maybe. And I told my husband, like, I'm not taking an intern job. I'm not taking like this system per hour, part-time, whatever job because I have a career. It took me like it hurt me a lot that I was being called for very low positions when I had like such a degree and everything. And whenever I had like a decent position, they were offering me a very low salary because you're a migrant, you're new, you don't have local experience. And I was like, what is this? So I got into a very low point in my life where I was like, I think I'm gonna go back to Peru. Like my position in the government is still waiting for me. Like I can get it back if I want, but then, like my husband was here, so it was like a bit of a complicated situation. And that's where I actually decided to open a podcast that has been like my lifeline for the last 3 years about Peruvian migrant women, because I realized I was not the only one. And I, like, my best friend is married with a Peruvian Japanese. They live in Japan, and we talk every day, and we realize we're on the same path. Dealing with bureaucracy, dealing with a new country, new language, new everything. I was like, okay, I want to talk to other people that have been through the same and learn from them. And honestly, this podcast saved me. Like, it was my project for like 2 months and a half, and then I got a job. And I was like, I'm gonna keep doing this because I want to keep talking with these women that are thriving in their new countries. Because you don't do it in 2 months, you do it in a few months, in a few years. It takes a minute. And I realized also the importance of having a community, having someone having your back.
Absolutely. Um, there's a saying I heard recently, but like, it's basically around like just knowing and understanding that even one more person is having a similar experience as you can be like so helpful to your own wellness or like to how you think about things and how you put things into perspective. And also like when you mentioned your friend who's living in Japan, I just thought about like recently I've been looking into different country systems, and for some reason, every country has such a complicated system for migrants, and it's so infuriating. But like
Yeah.
literally every country almost in the world has it so complicated. Like it doesn't even matter where it is. So
Hmm.
I just thought that was so interesting that you brought that up. But tell me also a little bit about what role does migrant play? does migrant guilt play in your journey, especially around success and family?
So, what can I tell you about migrant guilt? That's like, that's something I didn't understand like until a few months in. Uh, like my first moment was with like my brother having this accident, and you wake up 6 a.m. and it's like the time zone different, and then he's like, I was in a car accident, and I was like, what? I was like, I need to go, and my husband was like, look, it's 24 hours flight at least. You need to take two flights until we put you in a flight, and da da da, and then he's gonna be out of the hospital by then. What are you gonna do? And I was like, yeah, but I'm his older sister, I'm 5 years older. Like, he's my baby. I need to be there to go with him to the hospital, check his car insurance, check these, like the police record, na 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 na. Na. And my husband was like, then send him money. I was like, that's such a white attitude, throw money at the problem. And I was like, I love my husband. So, I was like, yeah, but like, I was like, yeah, of course, I can send him money. It's true, but I want to be there. Um, there have been different like moments, My dad was sick like a year and a half ago. He was very, very sick, and they were doing tests to see if he had cancer. And we went through
Mhm.
this with my mom like 10 years ago, so I know how the process goes. If it's a yes, the chemo and the resting and da da da. And I felt bad because I'm here. I was like, I'm not gonna put everything on my brother to take care of my parents. I need to fly back. And my husband was like, okay, you go for like 6 months, however you need. And then I was like, but I also have a visa process. I cannot be out of the country for more than 3 months, otherwise they reset the process, and I'm tired of this. I want to be done. And it's 5 years. So it was very hard at the end. The results were like he had like anemia, so he was okay. And again, throwing money at the problem. Like, what do you need to pay? We'll pay this, da da da. And I was in Peru a few weeks ago. My best friend mom died, and it's funny to say that I was happy that I was there because like she called me and said like, "Hey, my mom just died. She was very sick," and I was like, "I'm there. 2 minutes. I need to take a shower." She lives very close to me. It's like, "I'm coming. Just give me a minute. I need to shower, and I'll be there." And I spent most of my trip with her, checking on her dad, her sister, and I was like happy to be there. But at the same time, I was like, okay, I'm leaving in a week. What am I gonna do after that? How am I gonna be with you? Like, if you need to cry in 3 weeks from now because your mom died, I'm not gonna be there. And she has other friends who are there, and I was like, I hate you all because you're there for her when it should be me. This is my best friend for the last 10 years. I should be there, but I can't. So one of the main things is definitely throwing money to the problem. Like last year, my credit card was blocked because I was spending so much money. My Israeli bank was like, "What are you exactly doing there?" And they blocked me, and I was like, I had to do an international call and beg them to unblock them because I was like, I have the money, let me spend it. Because you're there. They're like, oh, we wish we could have eat in this restaurant. Let's go. I'm paying. My mom needs glasses. I'm paying. Oh, you need new things for new shoes. And no worries, I'm paying for it. Oh, you guys want to go to the movies? Going to the best movies. Let's do it. Popcorn, sodas, everything, because you're missing so many things that you want to like compensate in these 2 or 3 weeks that you're there. And then when I'm here and good things happen, I don't get to celebrate with them. Like I got a job, or like I got my proposal approved. It was very good timing that I got it approved like a few days before my flight. So when I was in there, I celebrated with them. But in general, when I got my thesis approved for my master degree, they were not here. I got a job. This happened. My birthdays, Christmas, all of these things. You miss them, and there's also like these small things. My brother has a girlfriend. Hopefully, she won't watch this episode, so I don't want her to know. But he has a girlfriend, and she's adorable. But I'm missing knowing her. Like I've met
Mhm.
her like 3 times. Last this past time that I was there, I tried to spend time with her. We went to do things together for Christmas and da. But I'm not there. I'm not able to see like what are your intentions with my baby boy. Like I got you. I'm looking, and she's very nice. We talk, we message and everything, but I'm not there. And sometimes I wonder, what if she is the one? What if he actually proposed to her? Like, all these things that you're missing, and you feel sad, and then you feel you're having a life here. I have my friends, I do my parties, my things with my friends, my in-laws. I travel, and then I was like, I want to spend this with my family too. And sometimes I get upset because I want to fly them here, and then I want to take them to Europe because I might go to Greece for a few days, and I want to take them with me. But my parents are no longer young either. They cannot like travel just because. And this, so it's an ongoing feeling I'm missing this, and I'm also not being able to share this with you, but I'm also happy here, and it's a back and forth thingy about the family, about the successes, the things that you get, and also the sad moments. Sometimes things go by at work, and I wish I could just go home, buy some food, and talk to my dad. So I can call him, but it's not the same. He won't hug me. He won't like sit next to me. We won't share a cookie together. And now I'm getting very sad while talking about this. Uh, you know, so it's a constant feeling that, by the way, not everyone feels it, and it's good. Like it's okay. Not everyone feels the migrant guilt because some people left home because they couldn't cope with home anymore. In my case, I love my family. It was a very hard decision, and it's an ongoing hard decision to come back every time I go to visit. But I also love my husband, love the life that we're building here. So it's like I'm here and I'm there, and I'm there and I'm here. But it's also like whoever is watching this episode is also okay if you don't resonate with this. Like if you say, "Hey, I actually have a much healthier life away from my family and friends," it's also fine. You might feel the guilt or the grieving for other things, for the food. Peruvians love food. We love our Peruvian food. So you might miss the food. I know people who only come back to Peru for the food. They don't even tell their family they're coming. They're like, I'm going to eat and back. And that's fair, you know? But there's always something we're grieving when we're away. And not everyone knows how to handle it. And sometimes it takes us a long time to identify this is what I need.
No, you like, I feel like you put that so well. Because I think about that a lot too. And like you just articulated it so well because that's another thing that is also something I resonate with like almost everything that you mentioned there. But like starting from like losing people, whether that's like in your family or like your friends losing people and not being able to be there for them. Like my dad lost his mom a couple years ago now, and like I was not there for him, so like I could call him and talk to him, but like how much that gonna do, so I resonated with that like quite a bit. And also with like things like new people, for example, in your family, like you're speaking about your brother's girlfriend. My brother also like got married while I was here. I went back for his wedding, but that was pretty much it. And when I'm with my sisters, we always talk about like, oh, like we wish we could be there and like see our new like nephews or our new cousins. Like we've never met them. So it's yeah, it's a lot. Like I'm glad you were able to really articulate that in a really good way because I mean I can't articulate it. It's too much for me sometimes. But I really
No, for
resonate
sure.
with you on that. And yeah, for some people it's like as simple as like just the food or like maybe it's like a park that they like or like maybe it's the weather. But it's like an ongoing thing. And then
Mhm.
that doesn't mean like you're not happy or like you don't want to pursue this life, but it gets pretty isolating, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And something I would like to add, and I think it's not spoken also enough. And I did an episode in Spanish for my podcast, and my best friend actually like host that episode. Is the grieving from the ones who stayed? Like you were mentioning now that your father's mom died, right? I got
Yeah, my
that right.
grandma. Yeah.
So my grandma died in March 6, 2023, and I was in Budapest with my husband. It was my birthday. My birthday is March 6th. So I wake up March 7th in the morning, like 5 a.m., whatever, to pee, and I have a message from a friend. So she's sending me a video, happy birthday, blah blah blah, like belated, da da da, and that she's at my grandma's funeral. And I was like, my grandma died? And I was like, what is going on here? So I called my dad. I was like, what's happening? And he's like, yeah, I didn't want to tell you because I didn't want to ruin your birthday. I was like, you're my dad and your mom died. How can you not tell me? And he's like, because it's more important that you're happy on your birthday. We can talk about this tomorrow. And I was like, my dad, my beautiful, amazing dad, is grieving his mom alone by himself without calling me because he doesn't want to bother me. And I was like, I'm his first daughter. I was like, what is going on here? So like I made a few phone calls and I sent money again, throwing money, the problem. I sent like money to someone to get them like food for the whole family. There's like 25 of them in the north. He flew. He didn't tell me anything. I was like, dude, you need to tell me because I can buy you the ticket. I can do this for you. And it was very hard, but it was for me it was like the biggest proof of love that my dad grieved his mom for like a whole day. He called me on my birthday. We spoke on the phone. We laughed, and then he told me nothing. And then I had to find out through a friend. I was like, dude, that was very insensitive of you to just throw at me that my grandma died, but it was not her fault. But I
Yeah.
think it's also important to kind of like acknowledge that those who stayed, family, friends, parents, colleagues, they also miss us, and sometimes we don't give them the acknowledgement or the space that deserve to talk what it means for them not to share moments with us. And that's something that I think sometimes we don't talk about it enough.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, no, like that's pretty on point, honestly. And they let us know, but I don't know how people like have an understanding of that. So I'm glad you brought it up. It's just I've lost friends while I'm here. My friends have lost family members, and it's just so isolating. And I mean, I'm glad we're talking about it because I know there's so many people who like resonate with that. And then there's also no like guidebook, right, to like how to navigate these things. So my
Mhm.
parents or like my family, they will withhold a lot of information from me to protect me. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. You
Yeah.
know? But like I said, like there's no guidebook. So for them, like there's no real like what do they share, what do they keep? They just want to protect you. And then for me, it's also like what do you do when certain things happen? I feel like there's just like it's so talked about like very little. So it's like you're just going off of how you feel or like what you think is right. But I feel like having conversations like this and then having people like you with your podcast and with your just voice and community building, I think that's just so important what you're doing. But and also like speaking of that, onto our next topic. You co-founded Mixed Neshamot and built multiple creative projects. Tell me a little bit about that and how the motivation for that came along.
So let's talk a bit about Mixed Neshamot. I'm very, very proud of this project because it's also letting me do very hands-on what's going on. So we founded this group with three friends back in October 2023. I'm not gonna get into politics, but it was around the time the war started here in Israel. And so we were supposed to launch it on October the 8th, and then October the 7th happened. So we're like, okay, maybe we should stop for a minute, and then, like 2 weeks later, the three of us kept talking every day because things were very crazy in Israel. And we decided to launch it nonetheless, like around 22nd of October, because the purpose of this is to give women in a partner visa process with an Israeli a community, someone that you can relate to in your process. And we have in the community over 200 women so far. And we have women that are already Israelis that they finished the process like 10 years ago and they're, have the passport, they have been living here, they're citizens already. And we have girls who landed in Israel like 2 weeks ago, who are just starting the process, who are like super lost, who are like, hey, I don't know, I'm from Lithuania. Anyone knows where can I find this special cheese that is Lithuanian cheese and whatever? And then boom, like five girls from Lithuania come up and say, like, hey, you can find this cheese in this store. It's kind of expensive, but if you order it in advance, blah 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 blah. And the whole point is that the main reason why we created this is because we felt alone when we started the process. There was not a community like this when I moved to Israel in 2020 with my husband. And there was no one I could explain, I love my husband, I love his family, but I just want to have my own friends and my own people. There was no one to relate with me how frustrating it was that the Israeli government wouldn't give me this silly paper that I needed to open a bank account. And like my in-laws are amazing. They're adorable. I love them. They're part of why I'm so happy in this country, but they're also both, all of them local. So they were like, hey, you just go to the Ministry of, what is it, Ministry of Work, right? Or whatever, and you open a case and they give you your document to be a freelancer. I was like, no, it doesn't work like that for us. Like, I need to take my passport, I need to take this document, this thing signed by the Pope or whatever, and this and this and the other. And there was no one to relate, no one to ask. And now we have this community where girls can ask anything, like, hey, my husband is probably maybe not Jewish, he's a Muslim, and they do this like celebration, but I don't know how to do it in Israel. And someone comes and says, oh yeah, you need to do this and that. We're doing Hanukkah right now, and for some girls, it's the first Hanukkah in Israel, and they're like, oh, should we eat this? Should I do it that? And then girls come and say like, yeah, you need to eat this, and you can prepare that, and you can buy this, and there's this store that sells the best things for like this holiday. Christmas. Many girls have their first Christmas this year here, and they're desperate looking for a Christmas tree. And their very Jewish husband doesn't know to get a Christmas tree. They're like, what is that? Like it's a tree. And then everyone is like, no, you need to go to this store. There's a sale in the north or in the south. You go to this, and we start sharing tips and that. And it's just beautiful to see these girls starting, like, I'm kind of envious of them that they're starting their process with a community. With a bunch of girls that when you say, hey, Mishat Panim, that is our Ministry of Internal Affairs that you apply for the visa, is asking me for this random document that says that I don't have kids or something like that. And then, I don't know, someone from America. And then someone from the US is like, oh, yeah, you need to go to this office that only works, I don't know, in Chicago. And they give you this document there. And you're like, well, that's bad. Like it's a random document that they only give it in this random office and you need to fly because it's not online. Um, so for me, it's been like a crazy journey with these two girls that are Brazilian. So we bring all the Latino vibe into the group. And leading this project that is become something much bigger. We do now career programs to help them adjust their CV to the Israeli market, how to tackle interviews, how to understand the interview process, what to expect salary wise. But look, here in Israel, in the US, wherever, they always take advantage of migrants. Like, oh, you're new in the country, let's give you a lower salary than the rest. So they come and say, like, hey, they offer me for this position, this many hours, fully on site, I don't know, $2K. And it was like, no, you say no, you go back and ask for four because they're putting you like in the lowest of the lowest and you have experience, you have this, da, 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 da. We do like events, partners events, only by themselves. Many girls who like have come to the events and say like, dude, I felt alone the last 2 years. You came into my life and now I have friends. Like they have friends. The fact that you have a girlfriend that you can go decorate cookies for Christmas, for me, it's like, okay, we did our job here, you know? And we've partnered with an organization that gives them legal support for free. We partner with an organization gives them mental health consults in Spanish and Italian for free. Um, I've been doing all these things, and I just look. I know for a fact that my life would have been much better if something like this would have existed 5 years ago when I moved, and that's like my motivation to keep doing it because it's a lot of work, and again, doesn't pay the bills. Just do it for the love of what you do. Um, but when you hear one girl who's happy and says like, yo, you helped me understand the culture, now I know how to find my way in the market to get my fruits. I was like, my job here is done. Like girls were like hanging out, helping each other get jobs. Many of them recommend, hey, apply to my job, I'll recommend you. And now they're working together. I hired one of them to work with me in my old job. In my office, there's like three girls in the visa. And it's like this sense of achievement that like, hey, you're not alone. Sometimes they message very sad things, how my family, my husband's family, my partners are not married, my partner's family doesn't accept me because, I'm not Jewish. I'm like, okay, let's walk through this together, like they need to accept you. What are your plans? Da, da, da. So you have like negative experience, like, hey, I haven't been able to work in a year because the government won't give me the working visa. And I'm sitting here in the sofa doing nothing. And I'm running out of savings. What do I do? Okay, let's figure out. You can dog walk. Not recommended to work under their table, but you also need to pay the bills. Like, there's a walking, there's nanny, there's do this while we wait, let's pressure this. They didn't accept the document, let's push, let's talk to this lawyer, this experience. And this is it, like this is what motivates me, it sounds very cliche to say like the unfairness in the world. It sounds too cliche, but I think for me it motivates me to know that I'm changing at least one person's life, with the little that I do, and to know that they're happier than they were before. Um, and this is it, I like this. I like to know that there's a community, that they're not alone, because the migration process can be a very lonely process. It can be very lonely, very frustrating, and the fact that you have someone who understands what you're going through, I think it's very important.
That's incredible. And It's really cool how, you brought in your experiences and then now you get to, combined with your community, you get to give back to other people in this way. And it's also really interesting, like how parallel migrants' life are in so many different parts of the world. Because as you're speaking, I'm like, yeah, yeah, that sounds familiar. Uh-huh,
Mm,
uh-huh.
for sure.
Yeah, you know. And I also want to ask you about your academic work, which combines migration, gender, um, and policy. So, what does well-being look like in migrant women through your research?
So I'm still on the proposal part part of my research. But one of the reasons like I focus on that, because many people focus on like economics or whatever, that I think like if you're not feeling well, then you cannot do anything else. You cannot like strive or succeed in other things. And well-being, of course, like if you know that you have a salary coming at the end of the month, right, and then you can cover your bills and even have some money to save, and if you have the pressure that maybe you need even to send money home, having a salary, like a paycheck waiting for you at the end of the month, contributes to your well-being. Knowing that again, like I was saying before, that you have a friend that you can call and hey, let's go paint pottery, tomorrow night to kind of like release all this stress from life and da helps to your well-being. The fact that you can, you know, go into the Google, search for movies or search for activities, and there's like a community center nearby that does a networking event, whatever, in your language, for women only or whatever. All of that contributes to the well-being. At the end, the well-being is like how comfortable are you with your current life, and for like I'm doing a study about Peruvian migrant women in 4 countries in Europe, France, Germany, Spain, and Italy, because the four of them have different migration journeys, different migration processes, and some of them like are easier, let's say, for you to feel part of the community. And some of them are very tough, like, hey, we don't want you here. Women, men, whatever you are, we don't want you here. Somehow you want to be here, but we don't want you here. And some of them are like, hey, let's figure out together how we can make you feel part of this country, part of this society. And the well-being is that, like for me, uh, like I told you, it was very hard to be like the pet that my husband would take around with the friends and whatever. And I was not feeling well. And then this sense of like accomplishment when I got my first job, my job offer, I was like, I got a job offer, like someone offered me a decent job with a decent salary. It was not like an amazing salary or position, but it was my first real job with a boss, with a salary and everything in Israel. And I was like, I love this. And I was like actually a freelance for a few months, and then I did a few gigs here and there. And then I got like my first job, and I was like, this is great. Now I don't like my husband has always been like, dude, you need money? Here you go. Like whatever you need to buy, I'm not, saying no. But the fact that I get my own money, that I get to spoil myself, like if I wanna look, I spent like $20 in this bottle because it's my favorite sitcom from Argentina. And I was like, it's my money. I can burn it in whatever I want. Like it cost me like $25 in Peru, and it's my favorite bottle now. And this is like the sense of accomplishment, like I can do this, like, and then there's also the health, the physical health. It's very hard in some countries to access to health insurance, to visit a doctor. You're like, oh, if I visit a doctor, it's gonna cost me like half of my salary, just to get a doctor. And if something is wrong in the appointment, they're gonna send me to another doctor. Um, Something that I want to put in writing here is Israel offers a visa. It's called B1 when you're not married, and it's for like 3 years or something. And through that visa, the health insurance that you get doesn't cover mental health. Because you're not a citizen, you're not in the A5, that is like for married couples, or you're not like whether the married visa or a citizen. And the last 2 years have been hell in Israel. And the well-being of many of the girls in the community were like, I need to talk to someone. So yeah, obviously we became the easy way out, because we're sharing experience and all of that. But at the end, you need someone who can actually give you real tools. And we tried, we brought someone and da. But the part of the mental health is so important also for the well-being, because you feel lonely, you feel frustrated, you feel rejected, discrimination, prejudgment, and all of those things are part of your well-being. Like, how do you feel And like if you migrated by love, it's not so easy to say, yeah, I'm leaving, right? Because your partner is there. And then if you migrated by for studies, you might be like, okay, the end of the road is like in 6 months. I just need to survive 6 months and then I'm out. But then if you migrated for work and there's dependence on you waiting back home, you cannot just quit and say like I'm out, bye. Because you are depending on you. You have your kids, your family, that you're sending money every month. So you need to figure out somehow how to feel part, how to feel content with yourself, but also achieve your goals, and do your responsibilities. So basically, that's the research about like how the migration policies have an effect on their well-being. How these women, after 6 months, after 2 years, they're like, okay, this helped me. That this country, for example, I think it was France. No, I think it's Canada. Actually, they have like these programs, like non-profit, that give you like a course about the culture, the language, and everything before applying for citizenship. And you're like, yay, because language is such an important part of being part of a country. How the expression, how like the people talk, how they mean to say things or not. Um, so yeah, so basically that's what I'm talking about. How the policies can restrict you. When I moved here during COVID, you couldn't leave the country without a permit. And I had to apply for an exemption because I was like, I wanted to go home. I miss home so much. It's been like 6 months. I needed to go home, and they wouldn't answer my application. So I had to go to the office one day before because my husband was like, let's wait, let's wait, let's wait. I was like, dude, I'm flying tomorrow. I need this permit, otherwise I cannot come back. Like it was a permit to come back. So I had to go to the office and I had to cry in front of the clerk for them to like move forward with a permit. I was like crying my eyes out, and the girl was like, "Don't cry, don't cry." I was like, "Dude, I've been waiting for a month for you to give me the document to come back, and I need to see my family. If I don't fly tomorrow, this is it. I'm breaking down here and now." And she was like, "Okay, okay, here's a paper. This is the paper. Ine, go, go, go." And I was like, "I had to come here, cry in front of you for you to give me a paper that I could print at home by myself. Like it was like a silly document." And I was like, "Why?" But all of these bureaucracy issues sometimes, not sometimes, always have an effect on us. And then you're waiting for months for the visa to be approved, and because you don't have a visa, you cannot access to health insurance, and then you're sitting there bleeding, with your period, with your whatever health issue that you have, afraid to go because the bill will be too high, but you can also not go back home because you're waiting for the visa. So it's a loop. And all of these things have an effect on the mental health and on the well-being of women and men as well. I don't want men to feel bad, so men as well.
No, that's absolutely like incredible. Um, that you've built a community of people to help support them during these kinds of times. And I didn't even know like that the health insurances work like that. Like that's so interesting. Um, but yeah, no, it's really crazy how these systems are set up and like not in our favor. And people
Yeah.
like unless they go through them, it's like it's so hard to explain. We've been talking for close to an hour here, and I'm like, are people even going to understand like a lot of these things because they're so like complicated and unless you've gone through them or like someone very close to you is going through them, you don't even think about that, right? So I'm really excited, to just see more of these conversations happen and also like see your work grow and like affect more people in the community. Turning the camera a little bit on yourself. So with all of these things going on, and you've also been having, these experiences, being away from home, being so engrossed in your studies as well as like your nonprofit work. How do you balance your life and how do you deal with those highs and lows?
That's such a great question because I don't know if I have the healthiest way to do it, but I'm gonna share it anyway. Um, First of all, I think it took me a few years to learn to pause. Sometimes you need to pause, and it's hard. Like my mom has always been a workaholic, so I learned from her. She's a multitasker. She can do 10 different projects at the same time, live on the earth, on the edge, and that's how I like to live as well. Which is not very proud of me, but it is what it is. But my dad is also like a guy who likes to take his time to learn and analyze things. So it has taken me a bunch of years to find a balance between I want to do 100 projects at the same time, but I also want to take a time to understand what I'm doing. It is not easy, um, but it has take a while. I think I like to keep busy because it's also a way to going back to a subject from before. It's kind of like a way to push down the grief because you're too busy, so you don't have time to cry. You don't have time to, to face the reality because you're busy. But that being said, uh, for the last 2 years, I think I've been trying to put myself first, 2 years and a half or something, to understand that if this is not bringing me joy, this is very Marie Kondo. If this is not bringing me joy, I'm not doing it, and that's it. Like I'm not. I had like this year in May, I quit my job. I was telling you about it, uh, because it was not about the salary or the conditions. It was like the job and the circumstances were not making me happy anymore. And I was like, if I'm not happy, why am I working on the weekends? If I'm not happy, why am I working on a vacation day when my parents just came to visit me all the way from Peru and I'm on the computer answering emails because according to my manager, the world is falling apart, right? So I was like, I'm not happy anymore. Why am I even giving you the extra mile? So bye. It was a whole thing and I quit and whatever. Um, but I've also found like there are things that I need to do in order to keep some sort of balance in my life. Again, not healthy probably, but I need have like a 30 minutes every night of binging something, whatever it is. Like right now I'm rewatching Gossip Girl. Not proud of my choices either, but it is like it's a dumb show. It's not like oh my god, you're learning something new, but it's something that kind of like for me works that it chills my brain. So if I go, let's say if I we end up this recording and I go straight to bed, I'm not gonna be able to sleep. I'm gonna be rolling in bed for like an hour because I'm thinking, oh my god, this interview was amazing. I wonder if I made a mistake. Maybe I said something silly. Like when is it gonna coming out? Should I tell something to Naomi? My brain's gonna work for like an hour. But if I finish this and I go to the living room, I'm with the dog, with the TV, 30 minutes with my water, maybe a snack or something light, and then that's it. Like my brain kind of like goes into turn off, and then I feel sleepy. I'm like, okay, time to sleep. Brush my teeth, pee pee, and sleepy. So it's silly, but even like the dog has got used to it. Like if I don't go with her for a half an hour to watch TV, the dog is like, what is going on here? Like, why are you not in the sofa with me? I'm like, okay, I'm coming. Like, everything, even if I'm late from work, whatever, it's a half an hour that we have. And something that I also noticed that it took me a while to realize that I was doing it. I think like once, one day a quarter, every quarter, I kind of like shut myself down. Like I don't, even if it's like a Wednesday that is supposed to be work, I'll take a sick day from work. No work, no laptop, no projects. Naomi needs me. Sorry, not sorry. This is my day off. Unless the world is falling apart, I'm not gonna answer your email. So like no academia, no side projects, no nothing. Like I won't even walk the dog. Like I'll tell my husband I need a day off, and I'll wake up like sleeping, be in pajamas the whole day, like a couch potato in the sofa. Maybe I'll read a book. I'll nap like 3 times during the day, but it's kind of like me resetting myself, but it works for me. I don't know if it works for everyone, but this is my way of like kind of like finding balance again. That I need a day every few months to just be alone. I'll eat some junk food, make my soup, and It's like 40 degrees outside, but I'm having a soup because that's my comfort food. Like a soup with these whole things. And it kind of like sets my body like, okay, we're chilling, and tomorrow we go back to work, to do million things and I don't know if it's healthy, it works for me. But it has helped me to understand that I need time, me time, And yeah, during the week I had her watching TV and blah blah blah. But once every quarter, I need that to like because then during this day, whatever I'm missing, like oh I'm missing, I want to go back to this project, want to go back to this. I realize I love what I do. But also during this day, I was like, I hate my job. I don't want to go back to see my manager anymore. I was like, okay, time to think about moving somewhere else. Like this is a time to be with myself, very like, very, very mental base of me. Like I need to be with myself to figure it out, to see how I feel during that day.
Wow, that's incredible. And I really love that. I might take a page out of your book and use that in my own life
Go for
because
it.
I love it. I'm also like in school and like run a nonprofit, go to work. So very active. So I really like that, you know, and it's also, I would say, realistic because maybe you might not be able to take a day off per week or a day off per month, but you can give yourself 4 days a year. So I really
Yeah,
love that. I love that. And yeah, like even with the shows, I know like not everyone is into like TV and stuff like that, but I do like to unwind and like watch like maybe Supernatural at the end of the day. I say it's
fair.
like managed chaos. So the stress is like in the screen and remains in the screen. But I'm really glad you shared that with me. I also want to ask you, how has your mindset of resilience changed over time?
So going back to what we were talking before, I think my resilience has learned that I don't need to do it all by myself. And that it's okay to break down once in a while. Okay. Like I grew up with a very strong mom. My mom is like the strongest woman ever. That woman has had miscarriage, cancer, and everything, and still standing like nothing happened. Like that woman is like the strongest woman that I know. I'm sad that she might not be able to see the whole recording. Her English is not like the best, but she is the strongest woman that I know out there. And that's why I've always, I think, tried to emulate her. But it took me a while to realize that resilience is not being like, oh, I can with everything. Resilience is also saying like, yo, you know what? I need a break here. And like I need a minute to figure it out if this is what I want to do, if this is, like what I want to keep doing forward. And this is also why like communities are so important because then you learn from other people how they cope with things, how they grow through the pain, like these growing pains when you're in a new country. Um, but resilience is also understanding that something is too much for you. Like I cannot handle this in this moment of my life. Like when I got married, and I think like I don't know, 3 minutes after the wedding, they were like, "Where are the kids coming?" And I was like, "What kids? I just got married, moved to a different country, trying to figure out my visa status. Like everyone need to take a step down, like here right now. And now it's a topic, it's back on the table, whatever. But I think it's important to understand that being resilient is not that you do everything. That is, you acknowledge what your limits are, and you're like, you know what, I cannot handle this right now in this moment in my life. I'm gonna table it for later. Of course, if it's like a dead or life situation, you might need to decide on the spot. But in general, I need to eat resilience. I think like again, I'm a married woman. I've been married for 5 years. I love my partner. And I think when you're a migrant, especially if you migrate for love, it's very important that your partner has the same understanding as you of resilience. That your partner, because your partner is gonna see you break down. Like my partner sees me in my lowest, depressed, frustrated with how the process is in Israel and everything. I'm being like, I hate this. I want to go home. Da 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 da. And he's been like, okay, what can I do for you to like feel better? I need you to do A, B, and C. Is gonna help me. Resilience is sharing also the load with someone else. Finding friends who understand you, finding a partner who understand you. It's taking me a while. It's taking me a few years to understand that I don't have to do it everything. The first year that I launched my podcast at Granadilla, I did 50 interviews in a year. It was mad. 50 interviews. Yeah, exactly. I like now I see backwards and I cannot pull that off anymore right now. Because I'm busy, I have other priorities. And like this year I did 9 interviews for my Latina migrant project. And for a minute, I felt like a bit of like a failure, like, oh, what, dude, I did 50 and I'm doing barely 9. But I was like, I'm in a different stage of my life. I'm doing a PhD, working full time, focusing on other things, and it's okay. And I think that for me is resilience to understand that you don't need to do everything and you can take pauses, you can postpone things. It's not the end of the world.
Wow, that's really empowering. Thank you for sharing that with me. And that's absolutely insane, recording 50 episodes in a year.
I know. I completely love the plot there. I don't know where.
That is awesome. Like that is, I love that. And we're gonna put the links down in the description, so everyone make sure to check it out. Tell me about any projects that you're dreaming up or you're planting the seeds for this upcoming year or beyond.
So I'm doing this project. So I had this podcast about Peruvian migrant women. We did it for 3 years. I spoke with 150 women, Peruvian women, throughout the podcast. Not like it was like more like spread out like through 3 years and a half. The first year was mad. Not proud of myself because it was a lot. And then I decided this year to do a spin-off of Latinas because at the end we share a lot in common, the language, the background, the barriers, and everything. But I'm taking it very chill now. Like it's like because I also have the PhD, I have like so many things, so many things. I need to schedule my day off already. Then like I told you before, if it brings me joy, I'm into it and I'm doing it, but I'm taking it more like chill. And I think like my dream and something we've discussing with my co-founders about Mixed Neshamot is like I would love, like, it would be my thing to be able to quit my job and be like, I'm just gonna do Mixed Neshamot for the next 2 years because it gives me a decent salary. I'm not asking for a high-tech salary, I'm asking for a decent salary. Because we're a self-sustainable community. So sometimes we ask for the girls to contribute, sometimes we put out of our pocket. But now we have a website, we have this, we have the other, and things, start costing money. Um, and I wish because for me is putting in practice all the things that I learned from the podcast and from my academia, being able to help these women, being able to understand them, to tell them, hey, there are tools, you can read this, you can approach to this person. And sometimes we don't have time to do all the things. We try to approach the embassies, and there were like a lot of meetings, but we didn't have time to follow up because the three of us work. We have jobs that pay the bills. So this is like our side project that we are very in love with and seeing it grow so much, but it takes a lot of time. So I think my dream would be that in the future with Mixed Neshamot in a different organization, I could really work directly with migrants and be the thing that is like the center of my job or my work. Because I think there's a lot of work to do, especially for female migrants in Israel and different countries as well. And I think it's important to put it on the table.
That's incredible, Anna. And where can people find you and how can they also support you? Because I'm sure a lot of people resonate with some of the things you spoke today. But how can they support you and your community? And then where can they follow you?
Okay, so I have a website that I've promised myself this year I'm gonna publish more stuff. It's ana-gutierrez.com. But honestly, you can just follow me on Instagram. It's random Anna G, like at random Anna G. I usually put updates on everything that I'm doing there, like my projects. Like I got a new hat for my dog. Like all these silly things, or like the dog. The dog is like a very important part of my life. You should definitely do a podcast about how dogs are involved in migration and mental health. That dog has saved me several times. That was important thing, like me passing my proposal for the PhD. So I think those are like the two places that you can follow me. You can follow me on LinkedIn if you want. I put updates once in a while, and also follow Mixed Neshamot, that I think is a community that deserves some attention as well.
That's incredible. And I agree. Animals are absolutely incredible for mental health. I've been interacting with communities that utilize horses for mental health, and we have cats here ourselves. So they're just like so therapeutic. So we can literally
Yeah,
like
for
host a whole
sure.
hour on that. Like it's so cool. And then to wrap us up, I would also like to open it up for you to give any word of advice to migrant women who are still trying to find their voice. What would be something that you would tell them for them to keep with themselves?
That's a nice question. So first of all, you need to breathe. You need to take a breath because it can be very, very overwhelming when you start the journey. Like the first time, I don't know, you get the list of papers you need to present and the process, and you need disappointment and disappointment and disappointment and this and this and that. And you're like, dude, what? Like I used to work for the government and I was overwhelmed the first time I saw the process I needed to do this. And I was like, okay, I need help. So first of all, like breathe. Second of all, I don't think I know that you need to put yourself first. You need, whether you migrated for love, for studies, for need, for whatever, if you're not okay, whatever process you're in is not gonna be okay. So you need to be fine. You need to be, might not be amazing, but you need to be in an okay level to be able to face the challenges that come. because it's very easy to get lost in the migration journey. Like
Mhm.
sometimes you might be too desperate to fit in that you will change who you are. Like, oh, people in this country dress like this. I need to dress like that. And you didn't even feel comfortable in those clothes, but you want to fit in so desperately that you'll do it. Or the way you talk, or the way you behave. So you're trying to fit, in this new place, and you're also trying to be connected. And there's like this whole imbalance of like, am I here? Am I there? I don't know. So it's very easy to get lost. So you need to ground yourself and be like, this is who I am. This is how much I'm willing, not to give up of myself, but like to negotiate with this new culture, this new country, this new language. And whatever works for you, this is what you will do. People might not understand, like, why are you now, I don't know, learning this random language that they speak in your new country, even when it's not the original language. Like, I'm dying to learn Russian because there's a strong Russian community here in Israel, and I love the Russian people. They're amazing. And you're like, why Russian? You live in Israel. And it's like, yeah, but it's a very important language here. So it's okay that you will decide these things work for me to be part of the community and these things don't work for me, and reach out. Don't be scared to reach out. Like, I'm very thankful that my husband pushed me to talk to Noi, because she's one of my greatest friends here. She has helped me so much to understand the culture, to understand myself in this process. She's very supportive of every crazy idea that I have. She's like, I'm doing it. I'm like, okay, let's do it. But it took a lot of me. I mean, like, I'm an old grown up woman. I'm not making new friends at 27. And here we are 5 years later, hanging out all the time and the whole thing. So don't be afraid of put yourself out there and be like, I'm new in the country. I'm in this process. I'm looking for friends. And you're gonna have every kind of friends. Friends that will be friends for like 2 minutes because you realize there is no chemistry, and friends that are gonna be with you for everything, for going to the store to buy bread, to going on a trip to another country because you have a girls' trip or whatever. So yeah, and it's not hard, it's not easy. If you want to talk to me, you can message me on Instagram. I'm more than happy to talk to you, to share a bit of the things that have worked for me. After 5 years, I feel more content in my migration journey, more balance in what I need to be happy and to be like to put my mental health and myself first as well.
Wow, thank you, Anna. That's really incredible, really incredible conversation today. And here's to making more new friends, in our 20s and 30s, because, that's just so important and it's difficult. So, shout out to that and shout out to putting ourselves first as well. There's just so many value-packed pieces that you gave us here tonight, and I hope people really get to take everything home with them. And I wish all the success to Mixed Neshamot this year. And I can't wait to listen more to your podcast. Everyone, it's going to be linked down below. I'm going to put all the links down below that you just mentioned. So please connect with Anna. And I'm so grateful that you joined us here today, especially so late in the evening. And I hope we get to reconnect again very soon, either for
Yeah,
another
for sure.
podcast or another conversation. But I am just so grateful to have you here today. And yeah, and if you have any last words before we wrap up, feel free to say any last words, and then we'll wrap this up.
Yeah, for sure. No, first of all, thank you so much for having me over. When I heard about this, I was like, I want to be here. I want to share my experience. And just like in general, for men and women who are going through this migration journey, it is okay to feel down sometimes. It's okay to feel to feel the struggling, and you're not being defeated. You're just going through a process in a different country with maybe the same language, maybe different language, but different processes for sure. Different people, culture, everything. It's a lot to take in, and it's okay to take one step at a time. It's okay to miss home. It's also okay to say, screw home, I don't miss anyone. It's also fine. Migration is not just one shoe that fits everyone. Everyone migrated for different reasons. Sometimes they had to, sometimes they wanted to, sometimes it was the only option to be happy, whatever. So it's okay for you to understand your migration process like you want to live it, as long as you're happy with it. And especially when it's a forced migration, it might take a minute to actually be happy with the process, but the resources are there. Don't feel scared to put yourself out there. There is Mentally United, there is Mixed Neshamot, there is me as well. And I know every migration journey is different. We're here for the long road.
Amazing, Anna. Well, Thank you so, so, so much.
Yeah.
It's been incredible talking to you, and thank you to our listeners for watching.